Welcome to Unit 4, Video 1. Unit 4 is all about the Roman Republic. So we're going to start with Roman geography. So this should be the very first page of your notes packet where it says Guided Notes on Roman Geography. If you take a look at the image on the screen right now, this is a map of where the Roman Republic began. It is on something called the Italian Peninsula. Now you should already know the Italian Peninsula. It's that peninsula we keep talking about all year that's shaped like a boot, right? We've referenced this many times. It's the easiest way to figure out what you're looking at when you're looking at the Mediterranean region because of its unique shape, shaped very much like a high-heeled boot. So you are already familiar with it, so that should make it easier to identify it as we move forward. The geography of the Mediterranean Sea had a great impact on the formation of the Roman Empire. So what's on the screen now is an image. Everything that's in purple is the Roman Empire. We're not quite to the empire yet, but this is how big Rome is going to become, how powerful, how all-encompassing. Think in terms of this region here. Right over here was Greece. Just this region. Macedonia was up here. And then the Empire of Alexander the Great covered this region further over to the Indus River Valley. And then down into here, but never touched this western region. So this is a new area that we haven't really talked about yet. Again, this is the Roman Empire. When we talk about the Roman Republic, we're just covering the area on the Italian Peninsula, and then Rome is going to expand into a much larger area in the time of the empire. So some of the geographic features that are important to Rome's development include the fact that it is located on the Italian Peninsula, which provides protection from invaders. Surrounded by sea on 3 sides, makes it so that only people can attack by ship or by the one piece of land that is connected to the rest of Europe. And that area is covered by the Alps. The Alps are located to the north, and these protected Rome from the rest of mainland Europe. Italy is a part of Europe. So the Alps are going to be a barrier, a protection. It is going to make it easier for the defense of the Roman Republic, of Rome in general, on the Italian Peninsula, because it's surrounded by water on 3 sides, and on the 4th side, it's surrounded by a massive mountain range. Rome is located in the central Mediterranean, which is good for 2 major reasons. I want you to think for a second and figure out if you can determine what one of those might be before we move on. Just try it out, test yourself, see if you can use your previous knowledge to figure out why being in the center of the Mediterranean would be beneficial for Rome. So for the first reason, it was far away from strong empires. Like Egypt and Parthia, we did not talk about Parthia, but this is another empire that existed. And other empires had the potential to wipe out the Roman Republic before it really got started. If you're really close, if you're trying to establish a new region under a new rule, and you're too close to an already established empire, that empire is just going to take you over because they don't want an enemy to be formed who might become stronger than them. But Rome is going to be far enough away over here on the Italian Peninsula that they're going to be too far for it to be worth it for these empires to go and attack. So this is going to be beneficial for Rome because they're going to be able to grow pretty unimpeded, which means people aren't really going to attack them as they start getting going. And by the time people realize how powerful they are, the Romans are going to be too powerful to stop, at least for some time. The second reason that being in the middle of the Mediterranean is important is it's a convenient location for sea and land-based trade. All of the lines on this map here are indicating trade routes. You see that they go over the sea as well as over land. So yes, there will be trade routes that cross through the Alps, which are to the north of Italy, and they will have sea routes as well. It is a very good location to be able to reach all over Europe and Southwest Asia and Northern Africa. So trade is going to exist with all kinds of different civilizations, and early empires. Greeks established 50 colonies in Italy and many more around the Mediterranean Sea. Colonies we've already talked about. From Greece, there wasn't a whole lot of land in Greece to farm on, so that was part of the reason that they created colonies, which are just regions outside of mainland Greece. And Greece is actually going to have a huge influence on the beginnings of Rome. And they're going to influence in a couple of different ways, and we're going to talk about those ways. Early Roman expansion was made easier because they simply took over established Greek colonies. So as Rome began, what they would do is instead of creating their own city in a new area that they conquer, they're just going to take over what Greece had already established. So that means that everything that was there that the Greeks had created is going to then be there when the Romans are there. So the Romans are going to be heavily influenced by the Greeks for this reason. One of the big ways that Greece is going to influence Rome is through mythology. Just as we talked about Greek mythology, Romans in the early Republic are also going to follow Roman mythology. So these colonies made the transfer of Greek culture into Roman culture much easier. The example, Roman mythology was based on Greek mythology. So they're going to have many of the same gods and goddesses, just with different names. So Zeus in Greek mythology is known as Jupiter in Roman mythology, still considered king of the gods. Athena in Greek mythology, who is goddess of wisdom and war, becomes Minerva in Roman mythology, goddess of wisdom and war. Ares becomes Mars, and so on. The only god that is not going to change names is going to be Apollo, god of the sun. He is going to stay Apollo. Everyone else's names are going to change, but for the most part, their roles stay the same. Another important thing to note about the early Roman Republic that we won't have a chance to talk about at any other point is Pompeii. You may have heard of Pompeii before, and there are some really great videos that are out there that are about Pompeii. But Pompeii is, or was, an area, it's a volcano, and there was a city at the base of this volcano. And the city ended up being covered in ash when this volcano erupted. The fascinating thing about Pompeii is that we get a really good look at how Roman life was lived because of this city and what happened to it. Because of the ash that fell, it covered the entire city and it kind of almost cocooned it so that when we look at it today, we can see, once we chip past all of that hardened ash, we can see what life was like. People just up and left their homes. So everything that's in the homes is very true to what ancient Romans, how they lived. So Pompeii gives us a great insight into ancient Rome. And the people that lived there, many of their bodies were covered with the ash. And so these molds are made out of the shapes of their bodies that were found in Pompeii. So it actually gives us a really good indication as to more about the people, more about the way that Romans lived. Pompeii is a fascinating story. And again, you can find some good History Channel or documentary videos about it if you have the opportunity and the interest. So that's the end of the video on Roman geography. Our next video is going to deal with Roman mythology.